I'm going to kick it off here for our final session, which is the closing session, Building School Systems that Ensure FAPE in the LRE. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tessie Bailey and Donna Sacco, who are both going to share a little bit of kind of the reflections and reactions to this session today. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tessie and Donna.
All right. Well, I am super excited to be with you all here at the end of our conference. It's always sort of sad to see it come to a close, but we hope that you gain some skills, some knowledge, lots of free resources to really help you start this school year off with a bang. As a reminder, my name is Tessie Rose Bailey, and I am the director of the Progress Center, and I'm joined here with my colleague, Donna Sacco, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Sacco, and I have been working with the Progress Center over some of the years. I am a senior technical assistance consultant with AIR.
Yeah. And some of you probably participated in Donna's strand on English language learners with students with disabilities, which is her area of expertise. So I want to bring us back to where we started at the very beginning. Our name is Progress Center, and so a big piece of what we're trying to do is clarify what does it mean to promote appropriate progress for students with disabilities. And as you listen to the strands and the breakouts, you really sort of see these, some of the details about how we get to promoting progress for students with disabilities. Post-school success is our ultimate outcome. It's why the IEP has a transition plan. It's why even as early as, pre-K, we're thinking about what does this child need to be successful for post-school living. From our BTO that we shared in our opening session, we identified those schools where students with disabilities were outperforming in reading and math on national indicators of progress, our NAEP assessment. And we also think about graduation as this pivotal piece of progress or an indicator of success that helps us move into that post-secondary success. However, most of what we talked about over the last 2 days was really around promoting grade level progress. It is the responsibility of both general ed and special education and leaders to develop an IEP that's reasonably calculated to promote appropriate progress in light of the child's circumstances. And that appropriate progress is around being successful in the general curriculum through progress on those IEP goals. Now, FAPE is what we're promoting today, and that's our free appropriate public education. And when we think about that, it's making sure that we're thinking about this work within the least restrictive environment. I want to give kudos to Jason Harlacher, who is from the MTSS Center. It talked about how do we create a general setting, a general education setting that is most accessible to students. Amy and Sarah Evans and some of our other colleagues who talked about how do we access the general curriculum. That is first and foremost, is that we need this accessible core programming or general education setting. The other things that we talked about in terms of our work is how do we leverage the IEP to be able to promote progress for students. A lot of you get really focused on as you move into the school year around the procedural aspects. Did we fill out the IEP correctly? Do we have all the parts of it completed? And while that part is important, procedural aspects alone don't really lead to progress. What leads to progress is our attention to what's referred to as that substantive FAPE. And that's the Andrew F. decision that really launched the Progress Center 6 years ago. And it's looking at the substance of our IEP to say, if we implement these services and aids that we have outlined, will this student be able to make appropriate progress? So that's really our documentation piece. Do we have the appropriate specially designed instruction, the related services, the supplementary aids and services that this child needs? Now, while that's important, what we're starting to see from our circuit court decisions is that we really also need to be paying attention to how do we implement. And I saw this in a couple of my sessions, is that, sometimes we think about the IEP as designing how we're going to implement the services. But the intent of the IEP is to focus on the services and aids that the child needs, document those in a way that we have consensus among our IEP team, and then leverage our school system to implement that in a way that allows the student maximum access to students with and without disabilities, so they can participate in extracurricular activities, non-academic activities, and of course, the general curriculum. So that's really where we're bringing this all together. It's both the design of our services as well as the implementation.
Great. So Tessie, thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity to bring everything together. Now, as all of you are sitting there and reflecting over the last 2 days, I know we did this early this morning and reflecting on, what were some of your key takeaways from the first day, but what do you see as a successful school system that promotes progress for students with disabilities? So what does that look like for the students with disabilities? I want you to go ahead in the chat, and I've got my chat up here so that you can, we'll see what you're adding to the chat, but also what does it look like for their families? And what does it look like for educators who support them? So just as we're here, please go ahead and add to the chat.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what a lot of you went to different sessions, so you probably saw a deeper dive into what are those indicators of progress. So yeah, Robert, general educators, I want to say that some of the largest effect sizes that we see, and Hattie's work also found that, is that 0.32 effect size, right, of just the teacher effect, the general education teacher effect. It really is the core of success for students with disabilities.
Oh, I like this also, that understanding the IEP services take place within a system, but how all of those different, I kept hearing over the last few days about silos and breaking up the silos. And I think, the successful system, that's what we're talking about, right? Thriving
And that
fish, functioning bicycle.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So I can tell where Corey was at. She was in probably the IEP strand as well as the MTSS session. So loving some of those analogies. I want to say a common theme that I see in here is really around communication and collaboration. And I think that's something we've been really trying to figure out, is how do we successfully do that? I think over the course of the last 2 decades, there's been some challenges in role clarity. So what do I do as a general ed teacher, and what do I do as a special ed teacher? And hopefully some of what you learned in today's sessions really helps people understand their role so they can effectively collaborate with other folks.
That's one of the constant themes coming in now, Tessie, about collaboration and communication and planning, and yeah, so critical.
Yeah. And Ronnie, I want to call out this high expectations. To me, that is really what launched the center in the first place, is that if we don't believe that kids can succeed or achieve similar outcomes as kids without this label of a disability, then we're not going to design systems that allow them to be successful. And as a parent of 2 kids with disabilities, I strongly believe that despite having some of those challenges, with the appropriate instruction and services and aids, they will be able to achieve similar outcomes as their peers.
I'm just smiling and laughing now. Debbie says, I want to scream all these resources to all the school districts in my area. And, it's funny because I sometimes feel as though I flood people with resources, but, yeah, you have to take incrementals. You cannot do everything at once, right? Those tiny pieces. Do you want me to go to the next slide, Tessie, as we're looking?
Sure.
Great.
And I love what everyone is saying here, because I think this is really what was central, or the theme of our conference, is that there are some elements that if we can collectively focus on those elements, then we're likely to achieve maximum effect for students. And I think those schools that were identified as beating the odds really helped us confirm, clarify what those elements are. And through our sessions, we were able to sort of break it down as how do we implement those things. And I know a couple of folks in the chat talk about this student belonging, and I just cannot stress enough. I remember when I adopted my oldest and he was starting kindergarten, as a parent, I just wanted my kid to have friends, right? The academic piece would come. But when I think about post-school success, having successful relationships is critical, right? To be successful in life. And so hopefully a lot of you all picked up on this idea of belonging, and part of belonging is those individualized supports that we provide to students, the way that we structure the positive behavior supports through our tiered systems, the way that we ensure that educators have the time to focus on promoting positive student relationships between students and adults, and students within a single session. I'm curious, Donna, what you saw, and I know you attended some different sessions than me, around how do we really promote belonging for kids with disabilities?
And, I was thinking just as you were speaking that how far progress has come, that you found, like, the beating the odds is so important, but to come up with this graphic to really, guide all of your work right now is so important. And with student belonging being at the center, because it's something that I think I always felt as an educator, but there wasn't that evidence out there to say, well, there were some reports, in the early 2000s-ish, about, just one person in a school. I think, we were talking about that in terms of English learners and being so, how important it is that, they are feel that sense, especially now when we have so many English learners who are students with limited or interrupted formal education coming into schools, even not English learners who have interrupted education because of natural disasters, really, I think about so often. But that feeling of belonging can help make the difference behaviorally, academically,
Attendance.
over.
Yeah.
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 So,
And something else, I know Amy sort of mentioned this, is how it's assembled these pieces together. And it was very intentional. And I want to just point out one thing that we avoided. So you hear us talking about essential elements rather than a framework, right? Because we have an MTSS framework. We have some of these other frameworks that exist in schools. And this idea of these essential elements is that regardless of what your framework is, we do know that a tiered system of support promotes, positive outcomes for all students, but these elements can fit within that framework. So we want to make sure that we're not looking at this as we're doing this in addition to what we're doing or in replacement. This is really just confirming, do we have the right school structure, the right school system, and is belonging at the forefront of the work that we're doing?
and so many people were commenting on that first opening session. They took so much away from that middle school and the way that the structures in place,
The
were
intentionality. Yeah.
yes. And I think that's the thing that I kept hearing repeated throughout the 2 days, how important that is.
And I want to say the next element is probably, in my opinion, the second most important. And I would think that belonging and effective general instruction sort of go hand in hand. But the assumption is for all kids, if you have those two elements in place, then all kids are going to be successful. And what we find is that students with disabilities generally do very well in school when they have access to this effective instruction with the right supports. And I think that right supports in our VTO schools, we found that they built those within the general curriculum. That's your UDL, your differentiation. Some of you are using co-teaching or some of these collaborative models, but the intention is to ensure that there is high quality general instruction that's both teaching the content focus that we need, as well as promoting belonging.
So I wonder, if you could speak a little to what about students who might not be successful in general ed, even when provided those supplemental aids and supplementary aids and services?
Yeah, and I think this is a big deal. I mean, there are a lot of, well, I don't say a lot of students, but there are, a proportion of our students who are served in residential settings, maybe self-contained settings, that even with all of the supplementary aids and services may not necessarily be effective in a traditional general curriculum. But for students in these self-contained settings or even in these residential settings, they still need access to the general curriculum. In some cases, it might be an alternate curriculum, but it's not that we're providing specially designed instruction all day. It's that they're still learning the essential skills as part of that general curriculum to be a successful student, a successful learner or worker post-school. So I want to encourage people not to say, well, even with supplementary aids and services, they don't get general curriculum. So the default is special education. And in reality, every kid is getting access to the general curriculum. There's a small proportion of students who may be getting it in a different type of setting, and IDEA allows for that to meet the unique needs of the child. But we want to go beyond just the focus on these very narrow, discrete skills that might be through an IEP or SDI, and ensure that all students get access to the general curriculum as appropriate.
I heard today, and I'm glad you're talking about that, because I heard someone say, well, our school is an all-inclusive school. And, thinking about what least restrictive environment actually means.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I think is where we're starting to see all sorts of different schooling options. There's many private school folks who attended today's session, and we want to think about how do we support kids with disabilities regardless of the settings that they choose, and to make sure that if they're in a private school or a charter school or some other setting, they're still getting access to these core general curriculum in addition to their specialized instruction.
Tessie, while we're here on general education curriculum, I wonder if you could speak a little bit to something that I heard in one of the sessions today, which was, and it really refers to role clarification. Someone was talking about how difficult it is to update data for new IEPs, when they're writing the annual review, or just
Class statement. Yeah.
Yeah, and how
Yeah.
difficult it is to get data from general educators. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I will say that we actually found some of this in our early work as well. And special ed teachers would say, and I'm sure many of you have said, I sent an email to the gen ed teacher and they never send me the data, or they don't send me the right data. There is this challenge that we have within our field is we make assumptions that everybody knows the same thing as us. And through our work, I know there's some state folks and LEA administrators on here. Through our work, we've really found that people don't really understand the IEP and the way that it was intended. And if you think about our ed prep programs, most general ed teachers never had the opportunity to fully understand what is the IEP and what is their role. So I think we look at this collective efficacy piece is we have to be clear about what are our roles. To me, a general ed teacher should feel empowered to say, look, I'm watching the student in my general curriculum. They're not able to participate fully because of these things, the impact of the disability. And I think they need this type of support. And a lot of that support looks like a supplementary aid and service. So they generally drive a lot of that part of the IEP, where special ed would say, oh, it could be that they don't know how to do this skill or are lacking the strategies or knowledge. I'll provide the specialized instruction around those skills and needs, while in the general curriculum, we're providing those supplementary aids and services. So I think it's just more of clarifying roles, but also providing the information and the professional learning to understand how to do that role. Yeah.
And the collective efficacy, as you
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
Let's go to this next slide where we're talking
This
about.
is my favorite one. Yeah. And I'll just start out as I think the individualized instruction, as I mentioned at the very beginning, and as you saw in the SDI for DBI, in some of our strands, is really, we have to think both about the general access that the student needs, like how to just experience school in the same way. And this part, which is, I have a disability, it impacts me in this way. And to reduce the impact, what is the individualized instruction and supports that I need? And this to me is where the IEP, special education, and related services is lining up with our IEP goals. So if you think about effective general curriculum, if we did it right, the kid would do better in grade level progress and their state and district measures. But on this part of it, if we designed an IEP that's reasonably calculated, we would expect to see a student progressing on their IEP goals. And as a result, becoming more independent, more successful in school, right? So that's why it's helping them access and progress in the general curriculum.
You know, I think when I was an educator, and I'm embarrassed to say that this, and it wasn't really until I started teaching at the university level in some ways, that I don't think I really fully understood specially designed instruction. You know, I would always hear that phrase, special ed, that's what, what's special about special ed is specially designed instruction. But I really don't think I understood it for the longest time.
Yeah. I was right there with you, Donna. And I would say just in general, we maybe got a little bit of muddiness with some of the focus on access to general curriculum, that we had a hard time teasing out what was the general curriculum and what was the specially designed instruction. We have a slide towards the end. We are collaborating with CEC. So if you're a CEC member, we have a 3-part series that are breaking down what are the adaptations and what do those actually look like. So are special ed teachers feeling confident and competent to really be able to design specially designed instruction that aligns with and supports students' access within the general instruction?
Yeah, and another session today was that crafting meaningful IEP goals. I think that as well,
Yeah, because if we don't know what we're teaching, then how are we going to design specially designed instruction to allow the student to be able to progress towards that particular skill to reduce the impact of the disability?
Exactly. And, sometimes I think we try to complicate things, and those Progress Center tip sheets, IEP tip sheets are so, just very simply say, what does IDEA say? And then what do I need to do to, best practice? So,
Definitely.
yeah. Let's see. Next, we're going to talk about staff collaboration.
And I will say it's all of you mentioned its importance within the chat box. So I don't think we really need to, clarify that this is critical. I think what most of us are struggling with is, how do we do this? Like, what does it look like in a setting? I know there were some questions in one of my sessions. It's like, oh my heck, does that happen after school? Like, is there enough time within the school day? And I know Lead IDEA did their session to say, how do we set up a schedule, the infrastructure? Our Beating the Odds panel talked about that, to ensure there is effective collaboration. So
Yeah.
I will say that part of, I mentioned this earlier with effective collaboration, is we need to understand our roles. And I know a lot of you are new teachers moving into this. And as a special ed teacher, our roles are not really to support the design and delivery of general education. Our role is to design and deliver special education, just like general ed's role is to design and deliver general curriculum. But we need to collaborate because, as Jason Harlacher said in his session, a student can't learn everything they need to learn in either gen ed or special ed. They may learn a skill within special education, and we need to collaborate with our general education partners or vice versa to ensure there's sufficient opportunities for practice of generalization across the school day. Right. And I think somebody had asked me about curriculum, what is special ed curriculum versus gen ed curriculum? Gen ed curriculum clearly is your standards, but special ed curriculum is your specially designed instruction to address the unique need of the disability that's going to allow them to progress on that goal.
And also that collaboration in terms of, in fact, in the beating the odds in the initial conversation, opening session, the schools that have common planning time, where it's really intentional to have common planning time so you can share what's being worked on, that you can have, you might not have co-teaching, but you could have co-planning, co-assessment, co-reflection, and talking about how you're working, to help bring everything across the board for students and not be in silos. And it's really hard to create common planning time in some master schedules, but how critical it is, because there's no time, right? There's never enough time for everything.
And I would say, and this goes into that educator support, I mean, really, we have to stop as a system and reflect about, are we doing too much that's actually creating less outcomes, right? That's like diminishing returns. And as we move into this school year, I would recommend, if you're a leader or a state, folks, is to say, how can we do less with greater effects? And part of, I know, the focus on being intentional about literacy instruction is, let's get to what we need to get to without a lot of this fluff, because I don't want to call it fluff, but that free time is what helps students build relationships, promotes belonging, allows teachers to be able to collaborate and partner, right? We need some of that downtime in a school day to be able to have a sustainable system.
Yeah. This is just a little something I noticed as I was hearing people talk about silos, and I was thinking how this 2 days of prepping for progress, we're showing Progress Center, the EL Center, the Center for ELs, AIR, MTSS Center, NCII Center, Lead IDEA, Spark, all of us working together to really be, talking about the same things and providing the supports that are so important and, freely available supports out there.
It's that collective efficacy, right? Is that we all
Yes.
need to be moving towards the same outcome, right? Which is ultimately post-school success, but making sure that we know what other folks are doing and how do we collaborate with each other. So there's a question is that, does the center have anything related to what is appropriate progress in terms of that quantitative piece? And honestly, Trina, we did a case law analysis. You can find that on the website. We'll see if we can get the link in the chat box with Perry Zerkel and Mitch Yell to understand what is it that we constitute as progress. The Intro-F decision does clarify in light of the child's circumstances. And in order to determine what that is, they look at the present level of academic achievement and functional performance. So the way that we write that portion of the IEP determines what the IEP team believes would be appropriate progress. So if you say, here's the baseline, here's how it compares to peers with, without disabilities, And based on prior growth or what we would expect for a student with this type of need, our IEP goal determines what we as an IEP team have agreed upon is appropriate progress for that student. And I think that's why, Brittany and Tamara's session on the crafting an IEP goal is so important, because it's not just about saying, oh, I want you to do better. It's that we have determined you need to be at this level of proficiency in order to be more independent and more successful in this session. Thanks, Amy, for putting that webinar in. But Trina, that's a great resource that gets more into like the specifics about what the courts are saying.
Yeah. So some other questions I know that we had, and please, y'all, what's on your mind? You pop questions in now, but we have a couple that came up earlier over the course of the 2 days. I don't know, Tessie, you want to talk about, we talked about this, the difference between general education curriculum and special education. How can MTSS support the implementation of the essential elements?
So I do want to just piggyback on this MTSS, because I do know that this is a way that a lot of schools are braiding and blending funds. I know Amber talked about that, like to maximize our general education resources and learning experiences. And so the way that we design our tiered system actually allows students with disabilities to have greater access to the least restrictive environment. And if you think about it, if I have a general ed system that has a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and students with disabilities are accessing those tiers of support, that's still the general curriculum, right? You're not removing them, which is something you need to document in the IEP. You're ensuring that they have access to the tiers of support that are available to all students. If you were in the MTSS session, I shared a memo from OSEP that does talk about how we can leverage MTSS successfully. And it makes clear that we write the IEP to focus on what the child needs. What are the services and aids? Not how we're going to deliver them, but what does the child need? And then if what we're already doing in our school that is available to all students is the same thing, then in reality, we've created a more sustainable and more successful system, right? The IEP is saying you need it, and our school system is ensuring that you're getting those particular services.
We've just gotten to about 10 minutes before the hour, and I know we want to pass it on to Amy to provide some resources. Tessie, do you want to have any final words before saying goodbye to people?
Yeah, I just want to say that, our field we're sort of dealing with some national things that are happening right now. And the intent of this particular event is to bring together all of the folks who are interested and, excited around supporting students with disabilities. There are great advancements. And if we can collectively build our capacity, our competence, we will be able to ensure that students with disabilities are beating the odds. And I think we've seen some of those examples in some of our schools, and through our partnership sites with schools, been able to sort of transition from maybe an inefficient setting to a sustainable system that promotes progress for students with disabilities. So please continue to partner with us. We'll continue to share resources with all of you and help us also learn from you what's working and what's not working.
Great way to start the
thanks, Donna.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
I'll pass it to Amy.
Yes.
Well, yeah, thank you both, Donna and Tessie, for some of your reflections and reactions, and everyone in the chat. I love seeing kind of all of the different reflections and reactions that folks had. One of the things that I just wanted to piggyback on what Tessie just mentioned before was this idea of like, we also need to take a little time to celebrate the successes that we have. I heard so many good strategies from all of you over these past 2 days. So don't hesitate to think about and reflect on some of your wins in your sites, your states, your districts, your schools, and share those with others. Because I would say probably Powell Middle School shared some great strategies with us yesterday, but we could have probably picked out many of you all to have put you up on that panel and heard great strategies that you all are doing as well. And so we hope that you'll continue to share those strategies and different ways that you're working and supporting students with disabilities as well. So I'm just here to wrap up with a couple reminders about where you can find some of the materials and resources that we've talked about over the past 2 days, and encourage you to continue to connect with us. So again, this is a QR code to the website, or you can visit us at promotingprogress.org. We would encourage you, as you go through the resources on the website, as you reflect back after this event, if you have questions or you want to talk through additional support, feel free to request support on that website. Anything that you put in there will come to us, or you can email us directly at the Progress Center at AIR.org. Ask away about how we can help best support you in this work, and we'll do the best that we can to make sure that we can support you or help you find a resource or something like that. So I want to just point that out. A couple of the resources that we spent a lot of time sharing across multiple sessions today and yesterday include these IEP tip sheet series. You can see some examples of those up on the screen here. We have one for each of the components of the IEP, as well as some subcomponents as well. So you can see for the overview of the Statement of Services and Aids, there's special tip sheets for the supplementary aids and services or related services or special education, as well as program modifications and supports. Those are all available for you both in English and in Spanish. And there are a couple tip sheets that are also targeted specifically for parents and families as well. So you'll see those, they have a blue background, and these can all be found on the Progress Center website under the resources section. And you'll find a section that says IEP tip sheets. One of the newer resources here that we've been in the process of releasing, and so you'll notice that all of the disability categories are not posted yet, are these disability category tip sheets. So these include information about what IDEA says about each disability category, as well as considerations for key terms related to that you might need to know, how that disability may impact students, and some suggested strategies for supporting students with, for example, other health impairments or autism or a hearing impairment or deafness. So there are a number of different disability category tip sheets that are available up there. We will continue to add the remaining disability categories as we finalize those different tip sheets as well. So check back for those. And then finally, you haven't had enough over these past couple of days learning, so you want to go back and learn some more. We have a series of self-paced courses. We share an online Moodle platform with the Progress Center, or with the National Center on Intensive Intervention and the LEAD IDEA Center. So there are a number of different courses in there, some focused on the IEP and thinking about the IEP team or the PLAF statement, the goals, and so on. There's a great collection related to special education law that was developed in partnership with Perry Zerkel, as well as some focused on instructional practices. If you're interested, I just put in the chat a couple modules from NCII that really focus on academic progress monitoring and behavior progress monitoring, including how to set some validated goals and different strategies for academics as well as behavior and setting those goals. So that might help in that question that someone put in the chat as well. So feel free to explore those. Those are all posted in, as I mentioned, a Moodle platform, and the intention there is so that you can get a certificate of completion after you take one of those courses. So they're interactive, you can engage with those. For those of you that are in training or professional learning roles, we have a series of activities that can help you facilitate different learning with educators. And so you can think about how do people get to know their IEP, what are the parts of the IEP document, your local IEP document. We know across the country in different states and different localities, your IEP document looks a little bit different, where parts of the present level statement might appear or so on. And so that getting to know your IEP facilitator guide and activities really walk through how you see the different parts of IDEA, the IEP as outlined in IDEA in your local document. You also can see the Looking for Connections tool that helps you to understand how all the parts fit together. And we've talked about that across different sessions today. If you're interested in using an activity related to the tip sheets, there's a facilitator guide to help you help people think through and look at the tip sheets themselves. And then for folks that were in the IEP strand yesterday, you got a chance to do the knowing your student activity, but that's a great way to really help people kind of get back to thinking about the disability related needs for a student outside of an IEP meeting, but really helpful in preparing for a meeting, helpful in engaging with parents and families or general educators or others you work with to really understand the student's needs and take it out of the meeting and into a conversation about the student. And then finally, we talked a lot about the beating the odds work and the building a successful system. One of the sections of the website is around these building the successful system and those different elements that we've spent time talking about. And on that landing page, you'll also see the beating the odds report there. So you can dig into that a little bit deeper if you're interested. I've mentioned before, but the recordings will be posted in the Zoom events platform until September 30th or 13th. And then after that, we'll have them edited and posted on the Progress Center website at the page where we've gotten all of the meeting materials for the different sessions today and yesterday. And again, here's the QR code and the resources there for the event materials. Last but not least, Tessie and Donna mentioned this opportunity for CEC members. If you're interested and you want to dig in tomorrow for more information about specially designed instruction, feel free to join us for one of these, the first in the three-part series session, really focused on practical approaches for SDI content adaptations. There'll be follow-up sessions focused on methodology and then delivery. So these are great sessions to really dig in deeper on each of those. And aligned with this session is the newest resource that we just released from the Progress Center that really has some related resources for content adaptations, methodology adaptations, and delivery adaptations. So a resource for you to check out there if you're really interested in digging in further with SDI. And then last but not least, stay connected with us on socials, on our newsletter. That's the best place to hear all of our newest resources and materials as they come out. Stay connected with the website. Please share these resources and materials with others, adapt them for your needs. Let us know how we can best support you and continue to do this work together.